I'm going to call to order the November 18th, 2025 work session meeting of the RCC board at 4:01 p.m. and forum of our board. Next to do introduction of guests.
Do we have long? Harrington, Vice President, People Culture and Safety. Lisa Stanton, Vice President of Operations and Finance.
Okay, Kohler, Vice President of Student Learning and Success.
Abby Lee, Executive Director of the Oregon Community College Association.
Mike Pollock, CFO.
Richard Plott, CIO.
Park Stina, Business and Workforce.
Greg McCown, CFMO.
Pat Sinclair, Executive Director of the Road Community College Foundation.
Laura Chandler, Dean of General Education and Transfer.
April Hamlin, Success.
Everybody's here. Next is our main event for the work session. I'll hand it over to Randy to introduce our guests.
Yeah, we have a treat with us this afternoon. Our stop today is going to be Dr. Abby Lee is going to talk to us a little bit about OCCA, the work they're doing to support our boards and our colleges. And as you might imagine, there's a lot going on in Salem and statewide. And Abby has a really interesting background. Abby worked 25 years at Treasure Valley Community College. How many of those years with you, Dave? 6 years. They worked together at Treasure Valley before we were able to steal Dave away. But in addition to having that really longstanding knowledge about Oregon Community Colleges, she lived on the other side of the state line and served as a senator in her home state or in the state she lived in at the time, at least Idaho. And so for OCCA, she brings really good knowledge of our community colleges, as well as understanding as an elected official what leads the day in conversations in meaningful ways. And so that acumen has been on display multiple times over the last year and a half. She served the work. So I promised her that she could have the workshop and she said that we have a really good board. So sometimes she'll do a lot of stuff on board governance types of things. And we need less of that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about legislative and other stuff. But beyond that, I don't want to steal the show. And the last thing I will say is very nice touch with your road blue today. That did not go unnoticed.
Well, great. Well, I do have a PowerPoint presentation because no presentation is good without a dad joke and a PowerPoint. So with that, thank you for giving me some time. I know that your time is precious, and the fact that you would be generous enough to give me some time with you is much appreciated. As Randy said, I do come with some unique background. I know what it is to put your name on a ballot. I know what it is to be held accountable in your community. And so first off, I really want to express my appreciation to you for your service as elected officials. I also, in addition to my PVCC, my statewide community college experience and my legislative background, my PhD is in public policy and administration. And I studied community college boards, specifically Oregon Community College boards. And the question I was interested in, and I'm always interested in as I come out and talk to boards, is why do people run for community college boards? We're not going to spend a lot of time today, but think about that. Why were you attracted to this? More importantly, why do you stay? And I was really interested in whether or not candidates saw themselves as elected officials. Were they recruited, or were they just ambitious candidates that thought that this was an easy entry to the political forum and they thought they'd get into this? And so as I ask boards that, and I'll probably come back around and individually contact you, but I wonder, and I would ask, how many of you were recruited, were asked to run for this board by someone? And the others how many of you just thought, hey, I want to be a part of this board? Great. So that's a little bit of a mix. What I found statewide for the survey that I did, the one slice in time, which isn't representative of everything, as my academic colleagues will tell you. Most of our community college board members were recruited. They were recruited by other board members. Sometimes they were recruited by faculty. Often they were recruited by presidents. And so that's always kind of an interesting look. But as we think about, as Randy said, some of our boards across the state really are still struggling with the difference between governance and management. I think that you are uniquely positioned with a really effective president, and you have worked a lot, I know, as I've talked to many of you, on what governance is and what management is. And so a number of you have also come to our trainings, and so you should be up to speed on that. So instead of that, I really want to talk about what board members should do, not just in governance, but one of the topics that's really risen to, I think, national concern, a little bit statewide. We had, I also support our Oregon President's Council. And so we did a little bit of a survey that Randy can share with you on what are the things that keep our presidents up at night. And certainly students are the things that keep our presidents up at night. But for many of our presidents, it's their board relationships. And I don't think that's particularly true at your college, but I would ask you to think about what is your role and responsibility with your partnership with your president. And so as we think about some of the things that are happening nationally, again, I'm a student of community college boards, and you think about some of the changes. These were kind of quiet boards, and now we're seeing a lot more attention. We're seeing our boards constantly show up in the newspaper. And I think that's the worst thing. I was a former newspaper editor and reporter. And I always kind of, as a former public information officer, I'm always like, what's the gut check? Like, how would this feel if this made the headlines? And so as we think about some of the things that you see, not at your college, but you see nationally in some of the changes for our boards, I always want to make sure that we're talking about these relationships. And I came from a state, Idaho, where North Idaho College was very much in the news. And so if you think about what those impacts of accreditation, what is your role as a board member in ensuring that we have really strong relationships with our presidents? So I really like this quote. When the president's performing well, the board fires the president. And when the board is performing poorly, the board fires the president. Right? And so it's really important as you think about your role as elected officials, and you come to this with probably a heart and a desire, but what kind of skills do you need to be an effective board leader? And how important is that to your district and to your students and to the college if that's not working well? And so we really need to be intentional about this board president relationship and be clear about how the relationship might differ moving forward. And again, this is something I'm sure that Randy talks to you a lot about, but I get to come in and kind of ask some different questions that maybe he hasn't been asking, and maybe he has, and some of your answers might just be telling for the staff. So again, as we think about what board members should do, I handed out an article. I didn't send it to you before because I didn't add to your board packet and make you have to spend a lot of time, but I really like this article, and I'll make sure that we email it out to presidents and boards with difficult relationship. And Peter Eckel and Kathy Trower, they published this in Inside Higher Education, which if you're not subscribing to that, you should. It's a lot of really good information. But we think about what do presidents need from the board? And again, you've got a cheat sheet right there in front of you. But as you came to this, your very first time, and you were thinking about your relationship with your president, and maybe this is just advice for a new board member that would be coming on. What are some of the things that you think the president needs from a good community college board? Anybody?
From my point of view, no surprises is always.
That's my mantra in our office. No surprises.
I said I love surprises.
Oh, Indra, that's
Communication.
yeah. Telling the president what you expect and then letting them know what they can expect.
I think also an open mind, like not coming in with preconceived notions, but being willing to listen and have an open mind.
Great.
Alignment on the mission. Who we're serving, why.
Accreditation, love that answer. That's perfect. So before we get to what the article says, what do you think a president doesn't need?
Micromanaging.
Management.
What's an example of that?
Questioning decisions at the operational.
Being out on campus, meeting all the faculty.
Walk it into classes, right? Meeting with groups of people without letting your president know. And it's really interesting. Again, we have 17 community colleges with 17 locally elected boards. And I will tell you, every board is different. There's a flair and flavor for every community. And again, some of our colleges really still struggle with that. And it is different than when a community member just walks on your campus, right? A community member can hang out in the hallway. They can be in the library. They can ask people questions, but your role as a board member increases that you have a fiduciary responsibility and you also have one employee, right? And so that power differential is really important.
It's really interesting having, if you're taking a class. Sometimes the instructor will say. Why are we here? But
Why are we here?
that's the point. Yeah, it can make it interesting.
And then just making sure that you're really clear that that's not your role.
Yeah,
right?
it's not my role.
I'm not gonna have those conversations in the class.
Abby, on the flip side is speaking for the organization. Making agreements for the organization. Getting out in front of the organization.
What else? Maybe not this board, but what have you seen that board do that kind of can trip up the college or a board?
Try to direct the president to do operational things.
Yeah. Telling them which classes to teach, right? What time classes should be taught.
Who should be hired, those kind of things.
Yeah, who should be
Yeah.
hired. I know that food service is a really hot topic around the state. It's really interesting when students are unhappy about food service. that kind of gets to the that level. So as we think about just kind of the article, safe place to discuss challenges and risks. Culture of candor. Look at this list. Support, moral as well as financial. And the article identifies moral as it's a really lonely job to be a president. And again, I don't think Randy's sad about his job, but it is a lonely spot. There's nobody else who kind of carries that mantle of responsibility in the same way. I've worked with 5 community college presidents at Treasure Valley Community College, and I had lots of advice that I could give them and things that I thought they should do. And when I put my head down on my pillow at night, it wasn't my job, right? And so I offer that it's lonely, but it's also kind of an expensive job in that you can't have a lot of friends on campus. And so having board members who have your back, board members who you can discuss things with in an appropriate manner, but also can just share the concerns and those shared values for the college is really important in retaining good presidents across the state. And I'm really interested in making sure that we are retaining good presidents across the state because those relationships intra college are really important for sustaining a non-system system. Again, confidentiality and how, as you look at this list, how does that work with our public meeting laws, with the work that has to be done? Because these are not clubs, right? This is not Kiwanis or Rotary or any of those. We have public meeting laws. So as you look at this list, is there anything on here? And again, the article it's kind of a national look at boards and presidents' relationship. Is there anything on here that jumps out as, gosh, I don't know if we can do that? Or how would you do that as a public board? And Randy, you can play too.
Well, I'm a big believer, and I know one of our roles should always be advocacy on behalf of the institution. I don't mind doing that at all. And I always felt like that was one of our primary jobs, because we represent the citizens out there, but being elected. So those that interest group that we represent, we ought to be able to talk to them about the virtues of the institution. So
So that's an easy one for you.
that's an easy one for me.
You do a good job. You drive to Salem and we appreciate you. But I think, Maria, to your point, alignment of mission, that real understanding of the institution, that the presidents really need their board members to understand what's happening at the college, what the programs are, and be able to advocate for that. So then let's think about what do you need from your president? I mean, other than him to be awesome and grow the institution faster than reimbursement can keep up. Have you heard that?
Yeah, we have.
We're hearing that.
No
think-
surprises.
surprises.
No,
Same thing, it goes both ways. Tell us before we read about it in the newspaper.
Yeah, even if it's just picking up the phone, right? I often do that with my board.
And trust that he's telling us, being honest with us at all times.
Yeah. Even when decisions are hard, laying out what those risks are, what the alternatives were.
What do you mean by flexible governance?
And that was one of the pieces as we look at what they offered. Just making sure that you have the communication, right? I think we are really proud of our bylaws that we help our policies. And having, I think, retreats, having just different types of meetings and different types of communication is at least what they put in the article. And I think just making sure that you are the ones who are setting your meetings and that overall standard.
I've not read the article, but one of the most interesting things when we talk about governance is the importance of having clean policy governance within an organization. And if you walk around an institution and say, what's one of the key issues? And you ask employees, what's the key issue on this campus? People will say shared governance. So we talk about policy governance on one hand, and shared governance consumes a lot of personnel time on the spirit of like, how do we make decisions? Who communicates it? What was my voice? Does my voice come with a vote? And so that the topic of shared governance consumes a lot of institutional relation time. Not so much at the board level with the president, but within the management of the organization. And so it's that fine line. And I suspect without reading the article, the flexible governance might reflect upon that.
And really, if I were changing that line, I would say flexible communication. Just meaning that the president and the board are communicating with each other, not making decisions outside of public meetings, but again, going back to your ethos of no surprises, right? And so sometimes there are things that are presented in board members meetings, and sometimes there are things where a president's just saying, hey, we need to meet too, or we're going to have subcommittees that are going to really work on these issues and then bring those to the full board so that it's more efficient and timely.
I would imagine these are all based upon the culture of the individual community. Because one size fits all wouldn't necessarily work. So what has been the history? What's the culture of the community engagement and staff engagement? So all those things are come into play.
Absolutely. And are set by our boards and their president's relationships. And again, I get to go to watch our boards in action. I get to talk to our presidents, and it is really interesting to see some of our boards sit like this. Some of our boards sit in a circle. Some of our boards use Robert Rules of Order. Some of them just call out things. It's really, and that's okay. That's their governance structure. That's those are the rules and the bylaws and the local authority. And as Randy will tell you, we really hold dear to local governance and the authority that is vested in our locally elected boards to decide what is best for Rogue. And then we come and we try to make sure that we can coalesce around one issue for all 17 colleges, which sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. So thank you for this quick discussion. As we just kind of, I like to I have a little bit of a teacher background, so I wanted to just kind of compare those, and you have the article in front of you. But I really would close this piece by saying, I think you have a lot of collective wisdom, and I've heard your collective wisdom, and you really are doing a fantastic job as I talk to your staff and your president, and I'm hearing from other college boards. And I get to have a monthly meeting with our president of the Northwest Colleges and Universities. So I get to get a little bit of perspective on how our colleges are doing. You should be, and I hope you can be really proud of the work that you're doing for students in your communities. And then if you had one message that I could take back to another board, is there anything out of your collective wisdom there about why do you think you get along so well, and why are you not in the paper all the time?
That might lead to my question, because there's not a lot of community, and I don't know if all college boards are like that. Very little community interaction. Like I've gotten a handful of emails ever in 2 years. People don't come to the meeting and ask for things or say things. I mean, there's very little community interaction. Is that typical? And to me, that's maybe what might cause some distress among board is community unhappiness, and then it's coming to the board that we don't have that. Is that typical? I don't even know.
So it is typical when a community is fairly happy with the way things are going, and you think about other contested races or other things. If you're looking at a city council, or I'm a real student of public policy and elections. And so while it's sometimes frustrating to look and think nobody's showing up, it really typically reflects that people are busy. They're generally happy. There's not, propose a program cut and you're going to have usually a room full of people. Unless especially if you haven't communicated what you're adding back or why that's happening. So it depends on the community. Sometimes we'll see boardrooms filled when the college is raising tuition $1. Other times they've really scaffolded that communication. And so people are like, yep, this is what we have to do in order to save that. So I think it really is community specific, but retrenchment of faculty usually gets a lot of people there. And sometimes you'll see advocates run for your board, and they're coming for just like one particular issue. And typically, again, we've seen it across the state when a program gets cut or there's a real unease between the president and the board. So, but I think our community college in Oregon have really enjoyed kind of a lot of community support. And so we've had that stability. We haven't seen those big newspaper articles all around, although we're starting to see a few if you do some Googling around the state, and that's concerning. Okay.
I was gonna add to that. I think, I'll speak on behalf of, I think the board and the administrative collectively on this collective wisdom. I think a lot of our harmony comes from keeping the main thing. When we think about our students and how we serve our students in our community, and we put that first, there's always going to be discussions about how we went about it, how we communicated but I don't think that there's any dispute that what we're doing and why we're doing it and who we're doing it for is what leads all the decisions that we do.
The other thing I would add too, sorry, did you?
No, I was just saying that sounds so fundamental, yet it can become very self-centric in these conversations and environments. Go ahead.
The other thing I would add is this community college does a lot of community engagement. And so there is, at least from my part, a lot of trust that when they tell us this is the need, that they are looking at data, they're consulting with industry. And that helps shape this sort of partnership governance where, you know, when they tell us, you know, we've got a shift in this way, there's a lot of trust on this board to think. So I think there's a strong foundation. The college has set around that they're really clear on who their target population is and how to engage and learn from that target population. That helps.
Yeah.
So you have your hand up?
I just was also gonna say, you were asked the original question, like, what is some advice for other boards or a few years ago, Gary and Maria led us through board and president agreements. And we were able to really have our voices heard, and we come back to those frequent a few times during the year to just make sure that we are a high functioning board and doing what we said we would do. And I think that it's been very beneficial. We haven't had to use them, right? Because we all collectively created them. And so we do use them. And I just think that's an important factor also for us.
When we started the conversations of doing that, some of it was people who maybe have cycled off the board, and I don't think it's for any bad reasons, it's like tenure. But there were conversations around, well, why would we do this? We all get along so well. Like, that's the best time to do it. Because it's a really hard time to come to an agreement when you can't agree on anything. It's hard to adopt. So then you can circle back. And so yeah, we revisit it at the annual retreat, and then mid-year, just, you know, do we feel that this is a living document? Who we are together.
That's great. I think some of our colleges would love to see some of those agreements. And to your point, that's the best time to, you know, to get a contract together and to have contracts when you don't need a contract, right? When everybody's getting along, none of it matters. And when it's not, how can you help each other, hold each other accountable too, so that we can, again, we also want to keep really good board members on our boards. And that, as I'm sure you've seen, when you have a stable board, there's some amazing things can happen at a college. And then the final thing that I would add, and again, I'm not completely dialed into your culture, although I get to visit with a lot of your folks, that communication piece of ensuring that your staff and your faculty also have that information. I think that's been one of the things, because if you as board members are hearing something different from your president than you're hearing from your staff, or your staff are hearing something different, I've seen that really cause a lot of chaos statewide. And I think, again, you can be really appreciative. I think, you know, Randy is just a straight shooter. He just says what he's going to say. And that's a really, I think, positive thing for your community. Well, my vice chair of the board, the OCCA board, would not let me get out of here without a little bit of a state of the association. So I wanted to, one of my opportunities is to go out and meet with our colleges and to report on the things that we are doing. You are one of our member colleges, and want to share with you the work that we are doing on your behalf, and then be able to answer questions and give you some opportunities to ask me some questions at the end. But our theme this last year, 24-25, was Community Colleges Work for Oregon. That is going to be our theme for this next year and probably the next year. We are really invested in showing how we work for Oregon, we work for students, we work for the economy, and we work for statewide growth. So those of you anybody not familiar with OCCA, we were established, we're a council of governments, so we're also a public entity, and so our board meetings are also public, and we follow a lot of those same rules and all of the ethics rules. But as you look at this map, again, 17 unique community colleges. I will offer that if you've seen one community college in Oregon, you've seen one community college in Oregon. We have a lot of the same structure, but we have a non-system system. But as you know, there's an association for everything, and OCCA is also a member of the National Association of College Associations. And so as we kind of compare that, I will offer that we have one of the most collegial states And I think Randy would back that up as far as presidents who really work well together. There's a little bit of competition, but mostly it is about there's more than enough in each of our communities that we need to serve. And so I'm just really grateful that I have an opportunity to work with 17 presidents who are absolute subject matters on student success and colleges. So just briefly, we have a mission, and we advocate, communicate, and collaborate to strengthen community colleges for the benefit of Oregonians, particularly underserved and systemically marginalized. So we think about that's no different than our mission is similar to your mission. Community colleges started, I like to say that we are the Ellis Island of higher education, and we serve everyone. We serve the top 100% of students who come to us, and you do that. You meet students where they are and with what they need, whether they're 4.0 students or rather they're coming and learning English as a second language. So we have a great staff. We just had a resignation, so we're looking for some help with our student success efforts. But I think that you're familiar with Karen Smith. She's been with us for 23 years and really brings a lot of expertise on board policies and board governance. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me or Karen or any of our staff. And so as I just kind of wanted to report, we have priorities at OCCA, and so our first priority and our most important priority, and the reason that I think that you are members of OCCA, is to make sure that we are at the Capitol and we are advocating on behalf of all 17 community colleges, most specifically on those resources that we need to get from the legislature to be able to take out to the Community College Support Fund. And so as we look at the priorities that we had last year on the community college funding, we had asked for $920 million, which I think was a pretty ambitious goal. And we did not get to that, but I will offer that we got more than most agencies. And I think that really was in large part to the advocacy to our presidents, to our board members. I don't think we would have gotten a dime if Pat Fahey had not driven to Salem. But as we think about our Ways and Means hearing, it really was compelling. And if you want to watch that, it was noticeable that the legislators were struggling with how can they invest in community colleges, because again, investing in community colleges is invest students, which invest in our work. We also were able to secure capital construction dollars for priority programs. Our colleges take turns, as you know, on capital construction, and we were able to get those, as well as a couple of extensions for colleges that haven't raised their dollars yet. And then we're really proud of raising the capital project cap. It has been set for $8 million for a number of years, and we were able to get that to 12.5 million. So particularly in community colleges that can pass bonds. And again, 25 years in a tiny rural community college, that's not an opportunity that's available to all of our colleges. So how are we looking for other opportunities? And we're going to keep having conversations on that. The Oregon Opportunity Grant, we were able to secure that funding. And then the benefit navigators, those dollars, as you might remember, were left out of the governor's budget, and we were able to get those in. So I heard this morning that those are also going to be held harmless, and that's a good thing as we're moving forward. I can tell you when it first started, I don't know how it is at Rogue, but when it first started, we had a little bit of, why is the state making us do this? And why are they telling us to do this? And it has been transformative for allowing our faculty to teach and then connecting those resources within our communities. So then we also had some conversations on co-requisite training. I know a number of your folks are working on those efforts. And then we're really invested in Adult Reconnect. We have hundreds of thousands of Oregonians who have some college, but no degree. And we're looking at some national models that we think will be pretty informative there. So just quickly, our tools, again, here's a fun picture from our Ways and Means hearing where one of our students, Marina, she's from Clackamas, and she called us that morning and said, I don't have a babysitter. I can't come and testify. And we were like, come on down and show the legislators what is the reality of our students. And so it was really compelling. And I should have taken a screenshot of Pat, but I picked Marina. But again, having that advocacy and your voices and our students' voices is It's really important. We have a toolkit. Our CTE day is always, our legislators love that, and it really gets to highlight our programs around the state. We worked really closely with your colleges on the Ways and Means roadshows to make sure that our legislators had input all around the state. And then one of the things that we really have tried to do more this last year is federal advocacy. And so we've been a lot more engaged in what is happening with the Department of Education, the changes in our grants to our institutions. And I think you're going to see us do more of that work. I mean, I know you will. We had weekly federal update calls. We now are doing monthly, but we're probably when things ramp back up in February, you're going to see more of those updates. And this is just a picture. I think your president's on the back row there. Somewhere there. And then as you've heard, I have just a passion for board development and for helping you get the information you need so that you can be the best boards that you can be. So last year we had our board member training. This year we changed it to be a board governance summit. And so we're really trying to elevate those conversations. And those of you who are able to come, we had Selena Grace from NWCCU come, and I think she gave a pretty powerful message about the role of boards in our annual conference. Next year's 2025 is going to have a picture of Rogue's stellar group that came to the conference, and Randy's already talked to me about a group discount because I think Rogue most number of people, but I think those who attended, I hope, felt like it was a valuable investment in your time. And then again, the legislative summit and our lunch and learns. Last month, we had a PERS lunch and learn that was attended by almost 70 people to really kind of help our board members think about the things that they need to know as you're making kind of these high level discussions. And Thursdays, my little plug for Thursday is we have HEC, and then we have Kim To from LFO, and John Wyckoff from our office will be talking about the upcoming legislative budget and some of the pressures. So that will be at noon, and you should have an email. And if you can't join us, we record those and we put them on our website so you can watch that later. But we're really invested in thinking about more things that we can do. And so if there are topics, I know PERS was one that Pat brought to us and said, hey, I know what PERS is, but what's the next step? And so we were able to find some experts to do that. And then just finally, we spend a lot of time so that you don't have to in making sure that we're connected with our statewide partners, our policymakers, and particularly our partners at Higher Education Coordinating Commission. I spend a lot of time with our folks at HEC, and that's then I bring that back to our presidents, and often our presidents will bring things to me. But that's a really important communication loop that we need to stay into. So again, few other things. We have lots of communication things that we send out to you. Before I go to questions, I wanted to, a couple of your folks are on our legislative committee. And so tomorrow morning we have an executive committee meeting, and we also have, we'll just meet, they're different ones. So let's just meet. We think about our legislative priorities. These are drafts. So our governance structure is things go to our committees and then they go to our full board, and our full board meeting is on the 5th of December. So our legislative committee hasn't met yet, but these are the proposals that we're going to bring to them. Pat and Jonathan are both on that committee. So you have some pretty dialed in representation. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about what we're thinking about, particularly the budget talking points, but also maybe one more on the legislative. Do you have any extras on the legislative? Thanks, Arthur. So we thought heading into the session, we were just going to be thinking about nothing because it's a short session, and last session was long, and then all of a sudden the governor asked for 5% holdback, and the 5% holdback, as you know, in the second year of the biennium is a really significant reduction. And so I was at the Capitol this morning, and Ben Cannon, the director of HEC, presented to the Joint Committee on Education for Ways and Means. He did a really good job about talking about all the hard choices because HEC's budget is a 5% holdback. Most of their dollars are passed through to colleges and universities. And our colleges and universities had about a week, as Randy will tell you, to submit what does a 5% holdback look like for your college? And what does a 5% holdback look like when you have contracts, when you have programs, when you don't have a lot of flexibility? And one of the things that we saw last time we made cuts in 2008 and really dramatic cuts in 2002 were the cuts that colleges were able to make very quickly were things that really impacted student success. So you think about the wraparound services and the support services and advising, and those types of things really impacted students' ability to complete their program. So we're really bringing that message to our legislators. And I think we did that in Ways and Means, but we're continuing one-on-one conversations with legislators about when you cut community colleges, you're cutting the very thing that's going to help you grow your economy. And we know that they have hard choices. I absolutely have sat at that table. I know that those are hard choices when our, what you'll hear if you go to Lunch and Learn, one of the big looming things out for our state right now is Medicaid and those changes. And so there's a lot happening, but we are going to continue to have the conversation about preserving some of these programs is going to do the very thing that the legislature needs to do, is to have people have family wage earning jobs and to be able to have strong communities and to keep Oregon students in Oregon. So I just wanted to hand this out, and again, as we think about the budget, I want you to just look at what that means, and we're going to ask, you know, we have some talking points there as you, if you are approached by any of your legislators who we are also having conversations with. But with that, I cannot leave without looking at our priorities. Not the last one, but the last one on the list, the Bachelor of Applied Science and Education, the HEC approval process. So we typically are bringing you things to the legislature, but you're going to see a couple of things on here: the workforce implementation and the Bachelor of Applied Science. These are efforts that we put on here so that they are rising to the level of our advocacy, and that is really working with our HEC partners who have been delegated a lot of authority from the legislature. So we, I think for the first time, are starting to elevate those so that everybody can see what is the work that OCCA is doing and how is that impacting all of our colleges. So with that, I'm happy. I think I've
Good on time, yes.
happy to answer any questions. And again, really appreciate your service and your support for Oregon Community College Association. You have the best job in the state. Mr. Randy.
You look at me like the conversation we had earlier today.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, that's on there too.
Well, Jonathan and I we have the benefit of seeing information that, and one was legislative, we're talking about OHECA. I guess that's how you pronounce it. And Marcia's thing. You know, I'm on a lot of stuff ambivalent. This one I'm not, because what she's saying, where she ties the community college into one set of roles, puts a cap on tuition. There's a lot of things that I think that local governments is supposed to do. And as elected official, I'm saying, why am I here if the state's going to tell us what to do on all these other issues? And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if you got that too, but I looked at that and I was a little bit surprised at how fully fleshed out that was at this point in time, where there's things in there that are good, and I understand why they're doing it, but there's a lot in there that I can't even agree with, and I can't believe that they have gone down this far down the path without talking to us. And that's my comment.
And I would offer, we were also surprised. We got that, and we meet weekly with our higher education partners, with our union partners, with universities. So we try to kind of talk to each other about what are you hearing, what are you working on. We may not always agree. This one absolutely caught us as a surprise, and that's one of the things that as you think about no surprises. So we immediately, Randy got a call from me and was like, hey, what do you know about this? And we started sharing that around, and we're getting, I had some meetings this morning. Tech was not aware of it. And so this might just be
Probably.
well, I think it is going to spark some conversations. We have a lot of, to your point, we have a lot of concerns about the flexibility. The legislature passed the ability for community colleges to offer Bachelor of Applied Science degrees, and then they delegated that authority to HEC. We are working through that authority right now for approval for the BAS in education, and we will, I think, I can't speak for our legislative committee, but I imagine we'll head nods. I think we're gonna vehemently protect our ability to respond to the workforce needs in our communities. And that might look different across the state, but having that authority is really important to us. I know the state is really concerned about regional universities and their sustainability. We offer that there's lots of other things that could be happening without really siloing those offerings across the state.
So does the proposal then increase, is the problem that's being solved, an increase in funding? Is that the problem that, I'm just wondering which problem is being solved by this particular solution?
And we're questioning that too. I think that there is a conversation about, are we duplicating resources, right? And I think the state is very much looking at, and one of the questions that legislators have been asking us as we look at the proposals on just the budget is, tell us how you can do exactly what you're doing with less money. You know, and our response is we can't. I mean, everything that the colleges have been able to cut that was easy to cut, you've already done that. And now you're looking at, again, how are we going to expand things with external partners, with grants, with, you know, bootstraps and bubblegum and MacGyvering things, but there is not an offering for additional dollars. We're also, you know, again, you'll see the Oregon Promise on here, and that came up this morning, and that's a commitment that was made by the legislature that simply has not been funded. And so what is that going to look like? Are they going to remove that statutorily because they're not going to fund it, or are they going to fund that? And we know that Oregon Opportunity and Oregon Promise make a difference for student access. But we're particularly looking at that proposal. I don't think it's going to get much traction, and I would say it if anyone were in the room. I don't think it's much traction for a short session, but we're taking it seriously because I do think that the HEC is also looking at what are the roles of each of our higher education sectors. We continue to say there is more than enough need in Oregon than any one institution or one type of institution can serve, and that we are unique as community colleges because we are locally elected, and we were, unlike the universities who were created by the state, we were created by our communities, and that's really fundamental to who we are.
One of the things I talked to Abby about, but I testified to during the Bachelor's of Applied Science discussion or in open comments for a HEC meeting. But then when this proposal was first released or shared with select individuals, I spoke with Ben Cannon at HEC, and it was a good conversation, but I reinforced to him, our colleges are uniquely situated where our responsibility is to meet regional workforce demand. And so if there's unmet need and we can't sit at the table and try to solve that, it's going to impact us in ways that the regional universities and the flagship universities aren't impacted. If we're going to have to go to our community with any shot for capital funding for bonds, if we're going to go to them for philanthropy to grow programs for high cost programs, they're not going to entertain the conversation unless they can see a willing and responsive partner. And so they're less concerned by, oh, I'm sorry that you're limited by HEC or legislative issues. It's, can you solve my problem? And the less equipped we are to solve those problems, the harder our other issues become. You know, if I go to industry and say, yeah, I can't have that conversation with you, what are they going to think when they see a ballot measure that says, should I support the college's growth? And I think that is kind of the reminder that I tried to put there, is those the other institution types are different and they don't have that responsibility to meet local need in the same way we do. And taking that from us will have a ripple effect.
I completely agree. We have a level of accountability that's different. And it is that accountability. I think that is compelling in this regard. Be really important for this board. I'll speak for myself for have a really clear understanding how HEC how they decide which and how they're going to grow that. Right. What I know we're focused now on education, but what is the process for them to decide? Because I think that's a little nebulous. And if we're gonna have conversations with our legislative partner, it would be important for that to be really clear.
And that's the sad thing, it shouldn't be nebulous. There is a clear process that is 3-phase that requires a statement of need. You go out and get input. Our team has done tremendous diligence to demonstrate where the need for this particular program we're pursuing is in our region, where, yes, in this instance, it is duplicative of a program or it comes to the same outcome result as SOU. But when you look at need, there's enough need in our region for both programs to thrive. And then some. And so that's the position we've been taking is what am I supposed to say to industry partners when I've got superintendents? And I told them, we're getting a lot of pressure on this. And they said, don't you dare back down. We need this.
And while we have 5, and I think that's one of the reasons why you'll see this be approved, hopefully be approved by our legislative committee and then our board, there are 5 colleges that are in this consortium. But all 17 of our presidents have had the conversation about the impact and the implications. And that while this is not just a foil for a process, we care deeply. And Juliet has just done yeoman's work out in your community, as well as colleges that are in the consortium of really bringing this awareness and the need. And HEC has a report that supports everything that we've done. This is fundamental to our part of our autonomy. And so that's why I think all 17 of our community colleges are really invested in this effort and allowing us to use our resources for this. And we're excited about it. We haven't done it since BSN was a legislatively approved because the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, it was a separate process. And again, that was just one institution one university that was really unhappy about that. And now we're starting to have kind of a collective conversation about what are the different roles. And most importantly, we believe that there are students who otherwise would not be served. And so we are really committed to that in our communities. So, other questions? Well, we are here to serve you. We are here to answer your questions and we are here to be a support. So if we can do that, Randy, anybody? Vanessa? Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't be there in person. I really enjoyed listening, so thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you. So thank you. Yeah. If, with your permission, I'd love to stay and kind of see.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
See if we really do it well.
Show.
Yeah.
I can tell other boards, oh, I was at Rogues. You're not even gonna go. Oh, no.
You know, Oregon law, it's an open meeting. You're welcome.
No.
Okay.
Your invitation.
Next on the agenda is the questions for items on the regular agenda tonight. Any questions? Seeing none, we will adjourn our work session and we have about 6 minutes till the start of our meeting. So we're bringing it at 4:54.